After months of back and forth arguing, mock drafts, combine, pro days, senior bowl, all the above, the draft is finally behind us. The Panthers made 7 selections this past weekend with the Dan Morgan and Dave Canales tenure is underway now. So in this video today, we're going to go pick by pick and not really give grades. I'll give a grade overall about how I feel about it and just give some points about what I thought they should have did, what they didn't do, and more so about what the trades they made instead of just grading prospects. But I want to go through every prospect, give a quick little summary of my thoughts on them as we evaluate and hope to add to this team in the future going forward. We're starting right now. What up, though? It's Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Blunt, the Sports Talk recap and analysis of the Panthers is what I do here on this channel. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up and then you subscribe, because the subscription is going to make sure you stay up to date, because I have film breakdowns coming on this prospect on a deeper level just to see how their skills will translate to the NFL and to the Panthers, just how they fit as well. But I also do an extended conversation about my thoughts on this draft class and how the coaches approach this draft in my Panther Banter podcast. So if you don't want to miss any of that stuff, subscribe with bell notifications. That way you get notified when I drop these videos, because pick number 1 started things off. If you went to sleep on round 1, I'm sorry for you. I know it got late. I know some of you guys had to work in the morning, and I know we didn't have no first round pick until we did. We traded up into that first round and selected Xavier Legette from the University of South Carolina. I am a fan of Xavier Legette, and his accent has gone viral. This guy is high in country. Regardless, we traded up with the Bills from 33 to 32. Rumors swirled around that the Pats were interested in talking to the Bills, and they wanted to move up with the desire to probably take Xavier Legette. Brandon Beane, who is good friends with our current GM, Dan Morgan, probably hit his phone up, was like, yo, the Pats trying to move up, bro. Like, what you trying to do? You trying to come get your guy? They want Legette. And so, hand in hand, things happen. They did a favor for a favor, old homeboys, and he moved up and made the deal. They got Xavier Legette. I wasn't a big fan of trading up personally. I would have just said whatever, but they wanted their guy. They got their guy. It likely cost the Panthers some other type of players down the line, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this draft. But making that move up, they did what they had to do to get their guy, and they got their guy. I love Xavier Legette's game. I think that him being big, strong, fast, it's the perfect recipe for how they want to use him. Dave Canales said that everything that he did in college, the variety of ways they used him, he pretty much was able to do all the stuff and show that he can do all the things that they require of our wide receivers. I think they should put him in motion, run him down, get him going with the full head of steam, run those deep posts, those deep crossers, stretch the field vertically and horizontally. He is that guy that gives us that deep threat. He is racked up the deep yards for South Carolina last year. I think that this guy has a chance to be a very, very top tier guy. He starts off early on being that wide receiver 3, can come in, learn, and kind of hope be wide receiver 2 by the end of the year behind Deontay. And I just think that he can get in where he fits in. There's not a ton of pressure for him to be the man from the jump, and I think that is perfect. The way they want to use him, I think is perfect as well. I'm a big Xavier Legette guy. For the guys that are saying that him and Mingo are the same, you're being lazy. I mean, just because they both black, country, and 6'3", 220 pounds doesn't mean that they're the same. Xavier Legette is a lot more competitive at the catch point, plays above the rim better. I think he's a little bit better of a route runner at this point as well. Not the best route runner in the world, but this guy, he has the work ethic to really, really get better and put things together. He's already back in the lab at the draft weekend doing drills with his receiver coach. The work does not stop for this guy. His college coaches have raved about his work ethic as well. I like Legette, man. He's done everything he is. He's a hometown kid being from South Carolina. I love it. And the second round got a little interesting because we did still have pick 39, even though we traded up. We know we got that pick for the Brian Burns trade. We decided to trade back to pick number 52 with the Los Angeles Rams. They traded up for Brandon Fisk, and they gave us a future second. I was so happy to pick up that second round pick that we gave up during the Bryce Young trade. So getting that was amazing. But not only did they do that sitting at 52, they moved back up to 46 and selected Jonathon Brooks, running back from the University of Texas. Now, Brooks, in my eyes, would have been running back 1 if it wasn't for the injuries. Some guys like Trey Benson. We made Jonathon Brooks that first running back off the board, and I have no problem with it. We need to be able to lean on this running game, and especially like they said what we're going to do, we need somebody with some juice, and Jonathon Brooks is exactly that. A 3-down back that can catch the ball in the backfield, can pass block, can run between the tackles, can make safeties miss, has that home run threat. Doesn't really have the super long speed, but he can definitely has a lot more wiggle, in my opinion, than Trey Benson, and that's what sets him apart from everybody else. Very, very low mileage as well. Sat behind Bijan Robinson in college. Only had 20 career carries up until this final year. I know he's coming off that ACL injury, but all signs point to him being ready for training camp, being cleared for everything in July. Not to mention, he'll be able to rotate early on with Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard's in the last year of his deal. He's running back 1 for now. Give him all the carries that he wants, but let Jonathon Brooks get his legs up underneath him and stay fresh. Don't force it. This is a future play. And then next year, you have 3 more years of rookie running back contract that you can get the most out of this guy who has nothing but upside. He's only 20 years old, and I think the best football for him is in front of him. Now, Jerry Jones made no secret that they wanted Jonathon Brooks after that first round. Obviously, with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott kind of being up in the air, they ended up adding Ezekiel Elliott. They wanted to find their running back of the future. He put it out in the media that they wanted him. Now, Dan Morgan, I know he was getting a little bit nervous probably hearing all that talk from Jerry Jones and being in that pressure cooker of a draft room all weekend, your first time being a man in charge. I'm sure he was sweating. I'm sure he was probably a little bit flunky. I hope he reapplied deodorant. If he was using Mando whole body deodorant, he probably wouldn't have had to. Mando doesn't cover up odor after the fact with heavy fragrances like other deodorants. It stops the odor at the source by blocking the bacteria on your skin from eating your sweat, which is actually the cause of body odor in the first place. What does that mean? It means that Mando is clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours. That's a long time. He would have lasted all draft weekend. And y'all saw me streaming pretty much all weekend over the 3 days. I had on my Mando under these hot lights, and it did pretty good for me. And I was a little bit skeptical too, because I've only used really spray on or stick in terms of deodorant, but the deodorant cream actually was a lot more effective and a lot less messy than I thought. If you want to try out Mando's starter pack is the perfect thing for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant I was talking about, 2 free products of choice like the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes, plus free shipping. We love free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to get you hooked up to get your starter pack. New customers are going to get $5 off their starter pack with my exclusive code Bluntness Sports. This equates to over 40% off the starter pack. So yes, use Bluntness Sports at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com, or you can check down in the comments below. I'll have a link to it as well. So let's move on to the 3rd round, because Trevin Wallace was a guy that really was a head scratcher for me. I'm not going to lie. Now, getting a linebacker there, I would have rather go corner or something like that. But I know that they probably don't look at the cornerback room as desperate as I do. Regardless, Trevin Wallace is a guy that's a phenomenal athlete. He tested great as an from that athletic department at the combine. But some of those traits show up on tape as well as what the word on the street is and how he's able to pursue the run and trigger downhill and be a heavy hitter. I don't really know a ton about him overall, but I'm going to read this excerpt from Pro Football Focus on his profile. They said at the combine, he confirmed that track explosiveness with 80 percentile and 90 percentile scores in the 40, vert, and broad jump. That athleticism shows up on tape, especially when running downhill. He can cut ball carriers off quickly, and his leg power brings hitting power when he arrives. He could be a good option for quarterback spies as well. While he's an adequate athlete, he still needs to be more consistent in play recognition after the snap. He can also often make up for it with the speed at the college level, but that won't be easy in NFL. So basically, he has the traits, but the instincts to be able to the diagnosis, to be able to recognize what's going on, needs some work. Now, does that improve with just a little bit more experience? Does that improve watching film behind Shaq and Josie Jewell? We hope so, because Brandon Smith was a guy that we gambled on traits that never really developed or never really got a full shot to, because it felt like things were moving a little too fast for him out there as well. So I don't know what the trajectory for Trevin Wallace is. There was a lot of skepticism. Some people say he had the worst film that they've ever seen in the draft by some pundits out there. But I think, of course, Dan Morgan, he's a former linebacker. Apparently, he sees something in Trevin Wallace, so let's hope for the best. I'm not going to write this dude off just because what the preconceived notions were on that, but he seems like a great athlete at worst. He's going to start off on special teams. Let's see if they bring him in just to rush the quarterback at times, because he had 20 pressures on 70 rushes his senior year of college, so he's able to blitz from that on-ball linebacker spot, so maybe he ends up being a high motor guy that can come in and blitz from the linebacker spot like a Frankie Louisville. I know there's nobody like Frankie Louvu, but maybe so. We'll see with Trevin Wallace. Next up was pick 101 in round 4, and they went with Jonathon Sanders from the University of Texas. Now, this was the best value pick, in my opinion. I think Jonathon Brooks was the best pick that they made of a player, but Sanders was the best value because a lot of people had him rated as a second-round talent, very athletic tight end. He did not test that way. So that was my skepticism. I would have gone with the more athletic, bigger body tight end like Theo Johnson or Jared Wiley, but Jonathon Sanders being chosen is a solid pick. I mean, he's nicknamed Man Hands because he has huge hands and he catches pretty much everything. Now, the athletic profile, like I said, does scare me because he did not test well, but he seems to play a little bit more athletic than that. He doesn't get a ton of separation because of that lack of athletic testing that he had, because typically when you see the change direction, you see the vertical, you see the broad jump, it shows you that hip explosion that you can play with. He separates more with just kind of outrunning guys and out athleticizing, I guess, guys out there on the field, not really a ton of subtleties. And he has a similar athletic profile in terms of height and weight and speed to a Tommy Tremble. So that's why I wanted a bigger body tight end to kind of help us more in the red zone and be more of a complementary piece. Regardless, Jonathon Sanders is a very good guy in at the yards of the catch. You can get creative with screens, leak routes into the flats. You can get him as on some drag routes, run him down the seam vertically too. He can run a little bit. Like I said, he has a decent catch radius. We know tight end really helped out Cam Newton as he was young and developing in this league. So hopefully a guy like Jonathon can help Bryce Young as well. Putting that together, another core piece out of Texas for one, but two, another guy that's good after the catch, like Legette, like Brooks with the ball in his hands in space. So I think the Jonathon Sanders pick was a nice pick for value, but like I said, I would have preferred other tight ends, but I'm still hoping for the best because that 0 jersey with the tight end looks way, way too dope. I want to buy a jersey, but hopefully he works out first before I buy that jersey. Next up in the 5th round was Chau Smith-Wade, the cornerback out of Washington State. Now, this guy played outside corner in college, but his lack of size and his feistiness against the run projects him to play in the nickel. Now, I think the Panthers, this is one of those picks, the 5th round pick. They moved around a few times in the Legette trade and the Brooks trade, and I think that cost them an opportunity to get an interior offensive lineman or to get a cornerback, because there was a run on corners before the Panthers took Wade, and I think that they're going to need some help. I know they had some reinforcements in free agency with Gilmore, but it is what it is. But Wade projects to be a nickel. Obviously, Troy Hill is that guy that's going to be starting, but he can learn there. Chau Smith-Wade went to the Senior Bowl, was the first time really trying out nickel, and did a solid job. And that's pretty much because of, like I said, their lack of length to be able to compete on the outside with bigger wide receivers. That's probably where he's going to make his money in his career if he wants to have something there. Obviously, he'll be a developmental guy behind Troy Hill, but it is what it is. I mean, like I said, there was a run on corners, outside corners. Guys like Cam Hart went off the board before, a couple picks before them. So they kind of missed that bus on the cornerback position in terms of outside guys. I would have loved them to bring in a guy like that. Regardless, Chau will try to do his best to convert to nickel. Like I said, he's very, very feisty in run support. He's not that big. Nothing really he can do about that. So he projects to be that nickel in the long-term prospects of this team. We'll see what he can learn in this system, and no pressure for him to come and start right away. But hopefully he develops into somebody that can be a building block. The 6th round pick was Jaden Crumedy out of Mississippi State, a defensive lineman. There wasn't a ton of production from this guy coming out of college, but to me, just looking at the style of play, seems like a system play. He's good at stacking and shedding, which they love from their D-line, which is pretty much getting full extension, taking over blocks and shedding those blocks, making a play on the ball. And we've seen this team on the D-line opt for guys that aren't as flashy, but to get guys that kind of just do their job. We see Ashawn Robinson, Tuttle, Deshaun Williams, those type of guys that are just kind of system over players is kind of what the theme is for Ejiro Evero. Regardless, he's a bit of an older prospect, which a lot of guys are because of COVID, but he's over 300 pounds, ran a sub 5.040, that type of athleticism and experience. Going to give him a chance to probably make the roster, of course, as a 6th round pick. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if he can come in and compete and push the back end of this group, because there's some young guys that we picked up last year that ended up playing some good ball for us. So he'll be competing with that group. Let's see how things shake out for Jaden Crumedy. And last but not least, the 7th round pick was Michael Barrett, linebacker from the University of Michigan. Now, he's undersized guy, high effort guy. with the winning background coming from Michigan, being a national champion, one of the most winning players in Michigan history because he was in school for a long time. This guy has special teams written all over him because he's 5'11", way too short for a linebacker, and he has a hard time with guards when he's playing out there. So, but he's not athletic enough to switch to the secondary. So we seem to project as a special teams player. I mean, you can't really count out this guy because of what school he came from, the toughness there, just being able to be a winner in college overall. But I don't think he's going to project to be an on-field linebacker at this point. I don't want to say, I don't want to just write him off completely, but you're taking a flyer on a special teams guy at the back of the roster, could be a glue guy that comes in to compete because of, like I said, that pedigree under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. So it's okay. But my gripes with this draft class, they didn't go interior offensive line. Now, I told you with those 5th round picks moving around, that number 142 that they actually traded to move up for Legette, Cedric Van Pran from the University of Georgia, who a lot of people said that has potential to start as day one, he went. And we could have put him behind Corbett. We need some insurance behind Corbett. It seems like the team is really going to give Corbett a look, and they're confident at Brady Christensen or Cade Mays potentially being that backup center. So they decided to not go interior. I personally feel like you should take swings on the interior every year, no matter what. Continue to get competition. You don't know who's going to pop. Push the back of that roster because you're going to need that depth. We saw what our guards went through last year, so why not would you not continue to add guard depth? That way you feel a little bit better about what you have going on down the line. Regardless, they passed on the interior offensive line overall. They did not spend high capital on cornerback either. I think that was a mistake. I think that 3rd rounder should have been a corner. I don't know who exactly they could have had on their board at that point, but I still think that corner was a higher priority. And I understand you want to go older with Gilmore maybe, or a guy like Xavier Howard, or a guy like Dory Jackson who's out in free agency. But I wanted to groom a younger guy opposite of J.C. Horn, and maybe have some even J.C. Horn insurance if you get one a little bit higher with some talent to come in and play ball right away. But they decided to not use that at all. I know next year edge is a little bit deeper class, and cornerback is deeper in terms of the draft class, so maybe they're looking at that, but they didn't address edge either. So it kind of is what it is. But they did do a good job recouping that 2nd round pick. I'm very, very happy about that. And running back, they probably could have waited. If they really liked Benson as well as Brooks, they brought in both for a visit. Benson didn't go to a little bit later in the 60s to the Cardinals, so they could have waited and just called the bluff on the Cowboys and waited for 52 to take Jonathon Brooks because they were still in front of them. Maybe they get aggressive and trade up to get Brooks and you miss out, and maybe they like Brooks way more than Benson because Brooks is my RB1, but the gap isn't huge in terms of that because of that injury. So they wanted their guy, they got their guy, but they could have waited, saved some of that draft capital. And like I said, that 5th or something could have been used on a corner, could have been used on the center, something like that. But it is what it is because guys like Bo Limmer and Matt Lee were even around later in the 6th and the 7th round. So they still could have made some moves on that, and it is what it is. But that's my gripes with them. Overall, I'll give this draft a C-. They did end up getting core pieces and foundational pieces on offense with their first couple of picks, guys you could build around, but it almost feels like they mailed it in with that 3rd round pick, but pretty much on the rest of the draft as well because they just seemed to kind of grab guys that they knew they needed to add to the room, but they weren't really precise. They're just taking good football players. They kind of just grab for need, but not really need. They just kind of grab guys that they wanted to. I don't know. I feel like they were trying to just throw a Giro a bone because they went offense so heavy early on. I don't know. It is what it is. But you guys let me know down below in the comments, what grade would you give Dan Morgan on his first draft as GM? I want to get you guys' thoughts because some of y'all can be harsh. Some of y'all were harsh during the stream. So I want to get you guys' thoughts. Without further ado, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. I'll see you next time. Peace.